67, huh?
Oh, what a hit on Dunham by Switowski.
I think I made him shit himself.
Just killing time. 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 Just killing time.
Keep my eyes on the stars, that's where I come from. Belt of Orion, son of the sun god. You know my name, I'm the conqueror. The Lion King, Kamehameha. Come 2012, come 12 tribes. Come 12 strands, come 12 lives. 12 steps, 12 months, 12 drug dealers. Oh, make bail, kick us at the crowd in jail. 6 violent sales, 12 serial killers, 12 dead without a trail or a trace. It's prime time, the fight night, pay-per-view suicide, the bee sting butterfly.
What up, everyone? DJ Nubis here with you in the Military Radio podcast with my co-host and great friend, Edgar Allen Poet. We are here for Poetic Carnage as we get ready to do our pre-draft discussion and analysis before next week when we do our live draft night, which we've done a couple of years now. A lot of fun. We're learning as we're going about how we're going to do it.
Each year gets
But
a little
last
bit
year
easier.
went off without a hitch. We did pretty good last year.
2 years ago, we almost died.
The
We
first
we
year
almost
was
saw the slowest, most awkward suicide, accidental suicide of all time.
we had our great idea that we were going to drink and party, and by the time we got to pick 5, we were ready to go to
It was
bed.
bad. It was bad. A death by dehydration under 3 hours might be a world record. We were almost great in an ungreat way, but folks,
Right.
we will survive.
We will. So we're going to talk a little bit about, obviously, the draft in general, some of the players that are coming out, and obviously we're going to focus on our respective teams. He's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I am a Denver Bronco fan.
Yes, sir.
And so we're going to talk a little bit about each of basically some of the picks that we're looking at draft prospect-wise. How do you feel? Because obviously it's changed a lot for you in terms of quarterbacks in Pittsburgh. Wilson's gone. Fields is gone, which is a little surprising, but it is what it is.
We wanted to pay him $10 million, and the Jets were going to pay him $20 million. We wanted to give him, I think, 1 year, and they were willing to give him 2 years.
So pretty much financial, But sometimes it doesn't pay to go off somewhere else to get the money because the Jets is kind of like almost where you go to die sometimes. So just ask Aaron Rodgers.
He did it to him. Actually, we're gonna have to talk about Aaron Rodgers. God, he came out today and said he still doesn't know if he wants to play. There's a million reports and rumors about him. He's at this point, he's much more name than game. If he became our quarterback, I don't think he would do very well. The offensive line is still a work in progress. He doesn't have his mobility. His arm strength, depending on who you ask, may or may not be waning. It doesn't seem like he's very interested in OTAs and training camp and things of that nature. at the end of the day, it's even if you round up and you think you can get. Oh yeah, before I get to that point, his numbers look significantly better than what they actually are. The eye test of him last season was not good, and he went on a little bit of a heater last year to kind of bump those numbers up. So it's kind of, and I made that same argument about Russell Wilson his last year in Denver. If people remember, so it's not just it's something that I look out for. I said the same thing about Case Keenum during his miraculous run in Minnesota, which really actually wasn't all that good. But so on and so forth. And the fact of the matter is that he's not a good quarterback. If you make a list of guys that you would just want to have starting over him, it's almost everyone. If you make a list just based off of in a vacuum, if they're better than him and you're gentle to Aaron, when I did that exercise, he was going somewhere between 17th and 25th, depending on degrees of depending on how harsh I was going to be, right? Because you get into like some weird stuff like, well, Trevor's been pretty good, but he's been up and down and injured. The same thing with like Kyler Murray, so like benefit of the doubt stuff and so on and so forth. So ultimately, he is the boogeyman of my offseason because I so desperately don't want him on my team because I don't think he moves the needle and he comes with all of the drama that Aaron Rodgers, regardless of how you feel about him, he makes news almost every week and he is a bit of a distraction. That is, I think would have to be conceded. So with the quarterback stuff, would I have rathered have kept Fields for the same deal as the Jets gave him? Yes, I would have. Would I rather start Mason Rudolph saying, Aaron's better than you, but you've won with us and you're a Steeler at heart? Can we make this work? Yes. Especially because if it doesn't work, I don't have to. Then the shit is just in the media about how the Steelers suck, as opposed to the Steelers suck, and here's this really weird quarterback doing weird quarterback stuff.
Right.
And all that stuff greatly impacts the NFL draft. Especially on our end with Shador and Jackson Dart. And Cam Ward is going to be gone well before.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking to you about that a little bit too, but obviously I think we'll start with our respective teams before we kind of dive into the general first round of everything. So who do you want to start with, Denver or Pittsburgh?
Let's start with Denver because when I'm mocking you guys get a lot of interesting things you guys can do.
Yeah. So obviously some of our more interesting prospects that we've been kind of looking at, we've maybe got Ashton Genty on the list, Omari and Hampton, who also appears on the Steelers watch list. Tyler Warren, of course, Abuko and Walker. And then there's some other players as well, both in wide receiver and tight end that Denver's looking at as well. So certainly if Genty falls to us, I think that might be a prospect that Denver goes right after immediately. What are your thoughts on Ashton Genty?
I think he's a first-round pick, and he's not a top 10 player. I would not take him in the top 10. Is
there concerns that he's like, and again, like I know this is kind of like a weak approach, but durability. And when I think of Boise State, I'm not really thinking running back. I mean, I know they've had some nice speedy backs, but does he have durability to match with, like, if you were to say, if I took Genty and placed him in the SEC, would he survive? That's basically what I'm asking.
I think he's a stud. And I think he'd be a stud anywhere. But here's the thing. I'm going to give you a couple names because, in fairness, this is not a point that I made. I think I saw it from Nick Wright, and I think he credited it to somebody else. But I just want to give that level of credit. This is a talking point or an argument that I've seen floating around. He is a stud. He was almost always going to have a huge amount of production in college. Okay.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. I would take him in the first round. I really would. Um, However, a lot of the guys who hit the ground running, so pardon the pun, and they're not just really good running backs, but they're amazing immediately.
Yeah.
Most of them can catch the ball a little bit. And
Right.
I think this came from Joel Klatt the more I think about it. And Genty, it's not that he can't catch the ball. I don't think he's a great receiver. He's not Marshall Falk running like actual routes, right? But he can
Right.
definitely catch like in a Le'Veon Bell type of way. I believe
Mm.
he's definitely capable of that. The problem is that they wanted him to win the Heisman, and it's pretty well understood that they wanted him to win the Heisman going into the year. And so I think they ran the ball with him more than they actually did because they wanted to threaten one of the most sacred college records ever. Barry, I think that's Barry Sanders with 2,628 yards.
I was getting ready to say some of his bouncing around back there reminds me of Sanders a little bit.
He does have some of that, but I want to give you a list of guys who hit that number. Tell me, we're going to do some of these guys are not like the other for
Mhm.
2,000 yards. The most ever, the aforementioned Barry Sanders. The second most ever, Melvin Gordon with 25. I'm just going to just under 2,600.
Mhm.
Kelvin Smith, just over 2,500. Marcus Allen, then Derrick Henry. Okay, so now we're starting to get some names again. Okay,
Yeah.
but then there's Troy Davis and Andrew Williams. Well, that's not good. But then there's LaDainian Tomlinson and Tony Dorsett. Well, that's really good. Matt Rozier. Matt Forte. It was at Tulane, but yeah, that's pretty good. Ricky Williams. That's pretty good. Ron Dane. Larry Johnson. You could argue because he was good in the NFL for a while. He had some stuff going on. Donald Brown didn't work out. Lorenzo White didn't work out. I don't know who Byron Hanspardar is. Damian Anderson, Rashawn Salam. In fairness to Salam, he had a knee injury. Charles
Yeah.
White, Tevin Coleman, Ron Dane, again, oddly enough. McCaffrey, Arrington, Ray Rice, Troy Davis. It's a whole mixed bag. And so there are a lot of guys who are great college backs who dominated college. And then there's a lot of guys who then they went to the pros and they got shat on. And then some of those are some of the best running backs we've ever fucking seen. So
Yeah.
I don't throw out production. You did it on the fucking field. That shit happened. That shit matters to an extent. Here's the problem that I have. I don't think, and this is just me, when I look at him, I don't see immediate greatness. When I talk with my friends about like what is a first round running back versus what is a like NBA lottery type level pick or like top 10 pick for a running back. When the Giants took Saquon Barkley, I was like, damn, y'all still need a quarterback, but that made sense. Okay. And then Barkley went on to do Barkley things. Okay. When the Panthers took McCaffrey, I was like, I don't really know too much about this prospect, but if he hits the level, and he did, if he hits the level that some people are saying that he's on, it makes sense. And that's where I put Genty. If he is the real deal, the genuine article, then he is that pick. But I'm not certain about that. I was certain about Barkley, and I was certain about Adrian Peterson. Okay. I wasn't certain about Melvin Gordon. I wasn't certain about some of those names. Some of those names are somewhat recent, you know,
Yeah.
and I was certain about Derrick Henry. And now, in fairness to Genty, it took Derrick Henry a little while to get going. And that's what happens when you play for the Titans on offense. But with with that being said, it's a horrible place to play offense. Just ask Henry and AJ fucking Brown. Um, that is the thing that I have with Genty. I think he will be long gone. I think he's going to be a Raider. I think I'm mocking him where almost everybody else is mocking him. For your team, I could you put up that list of guys again? Okay, so I think Genty. And by the way, if somebody has Genty as a top 10 guy, I get it. I'm like that's not jumping out the fucking window. I don't think that's crazy.
Well, obviously Denver's picking 20th, but
Yeah.
people had been saying that they would have been surprised if Genty fell to us. So
If you
did
if you
did you
got him at
see
20,
him?
I'd high five you. That'd be if you got
Yeah.
Ginty. I've also seen people say that Denver might move up. I think there is a world in which
Oh, well, I mean, I don't think we should move up for him, but obviously if unless they have something else in mind, like it's not Genty,
if
but somebody else.
yeah, well, I think the scenario is, so there's a world in which everybody's puffing up Ginty because they want somebody else to take him. They want guys to fall. Ginty falls to the 10 to 12 to 15 range. Denver moves up 5-ish spots to get him, doesn't give up the sun. That would be the sun and the moon. That would be acceptable. I
Yeah.
have running backs going early. I have Ashton
Mm.
Ginty going to the Raiders, and I believe they pick at 6. Yes, they pick at
Ugh.
6. And then
They
I
pissed me
have
off doing that too.
Hampton going to where the fuck does Dallas pick? 12. I have Hampton going to Dallas because he's billed as Derrick Henry light. They missed out on Derrick Henry. They need a power back. The fans want to run the ball. I think Jerry Jones wants to prove that he can still find the running back because last year was embarrassing on so many levels. I have him going there. And then did I see was Tyler Warren on your list?
Um,
You have Tyler Warren. I have him
yeah,
going
yeah.
9 to the Saints because so Warren is one of the most intriguing prospects. Some people really believe in him. Some people see him as a first round guy, maybe not that high. For you all, I had you guys taking Matthew Golden.
That's
The
who
wide
Walters
receiver.
has too, because apparently he's kind of like a wide receiver tight end hybrid. So that might be why you might see Tyler go earlier, because if Denver is okay with Golden, then that might be where they go, because we do need wide receiver help. And I'd rather see him kind of go after a hybrid rather than go after us, unless it was Tyler, who was like pretty much one of the best tight ends in the class. But
If Warren felt so, I am historically on the right side of first round tight ends. They very rarely work. And even when a lot of times when they do work, you could have found somebody in the second with better or the same levels of production. So if I'm going to take a tight end, it makes sense sometimes. Like there's a classic, I have 2 first round picks. I take the quarterback and get him his security blanket. It actually oftentimes doesn't fucking work that well, but that does on surface level make sense. There are other times where an example of a loaded roster or a really strong roster, a tight end who's one of the best players in the draft, but he falls because he's a tight end. The Bengals, Jermaine Gresham. You have there's some other examples. With that being said, sometimes you get somebody like Brock Bowers, who was so criminally underdrafted, and we both thought that. We're both talking about that, and it's like,
you're
oh
like,
fuck, and of course,
please take
yeah,
him, somebody.
yeah, and then he went to, and now he's just one of the best players in the fucking game as a rookie, right? So Warren, he sure does feel like that's a first round tight end.
Right.
I think if you guys take a tight end, I think it's more likely to be Loveland.
Yeah.
Um,
That's my name that
Golden,
popped up.
Golden makes a ton of sense to me. Also, um, the cat from Ohio State, Ibuka, is another, because when I was doing my mock, I was like, oh shit. I at this point, I think they're both good prospects. I think Golden does more of what Sean wants, so that's why I went with Golden. I could have easily put Egbuka because I have him going to Green Bay. I could have swapped those. So that is where I have Denver going. There's some other names too. There's some defensive players that make sense for Denver. I think
Yeah,
Derek.
that's one thing I thought we might need to focus on, but because of the loss at wide receiver and then of course running back, it's going to change things a little. But yeah, I saw Jalen Walker pop up there, so linebacker would be nice.
Jihad Campbell actually makes a lot of sense. And then when you get to the back 25% of the draft, there's a lot of really interesting prospects, right? And there's a lot of different, like, so for instance, some people look at Donovan Oziraki. I'm one of the things, this is a cheat sheet that we also do, chat. Last year, we half-assedly had a name pronunciation guide floating around somewhere in the chaos. we're gonna we're gonna do a better job of having that bitch open and available because I just butchered that poor man's fucking name, and I am so sorry, Donovan, for doing that. But he makes sense. There are Luther Burden the third would also make sense. Reasonable people could have him higher. You know, you can make an argument for offensive line. Do you go Josh Connerly Jr.? I think that you guys are too high, but there's some names. One guy that I have dropping, and I did my mock draft, and I was like, holy fuck, how did this guy drop so far? And I thought I was like high on crack. I was like, how the fuck did I do this? And I started looking at more and more drafts, and I saw other people, not a ton, but I saw other people having this guy drop, and I was like, okay, thank God I wasn't accidentally smoking fucking crack. Will Johnson, who I think is the corner of the class, I had him falling to Houston. If you took Will Johnson, and honestly, it's really more injury concern for him because that guy's a monster. And I tend to just trust defensive players from Michigan, which is lazy analysis, but it is true. I just kind of do. If you took Will Johnson, you paired him with Surtain, that would be beyond formidable. And there is an
Yeah.
argument there. So Denver is actually kind of in a sweet spot for a lot of players at the draft. And I only say that because you guys have a fucking quarterback. When you have a quarterback, so much of the draft opens up for you for what you can do, which is my way for segueing into the fucking Steelers and the fucking mess that we're in because we don't have a quarterback. All right.
You might have a shot at one.
We
And
might
this is
have a
where
shot.
my question to you comes in because I saw Cam Ward play. He's okay. But I also saw Shadir Sanders play, and I think he's actually either as good or better than Cam Ward. So tell me your analysis, because I go to you for all the deep info on these guys. Why is Shadir like projected so low compared to Cam?
So Cam is a physical specimen. We have seen, well, this is my question to you. Regardless of if you agree with this or not, do you think it's a crazy take to say that over the past 10 years, we've seen teams take raw prospects and hit on it enough to make you kind of want to just gamble with one? I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got the cat down in Indianapolis who's kind of on his last legs. That's one example. Josh Allen is the other example. You know, you have Johnny Manziel, that's not a good one because he had a lot of stuff going on. Baggage and you know, but you have Malik Willis, a guy who I wanted the Pittsburgh Steelers to take over Kenny Pickett. Ironically, he's actually played better quarterback throughout his career. That might just be being in Green Bay, though. You know, that didn't work out. The flip side is we were both old enough to remember when that's how we talked about Lamar Jackson as a prospect. So it's kind of, and some of these prospects are beauty in the eye of the beholder, so on and so forth. I get all that. If the argument for Cam Ward is this man is a killer. He has zero fear when he steps on the football field. He takes the incredible gift that God gave him as for an arm for a quarterback, and he slings that bitch, and he slings it well. He's very talented. He's very gifted. You look at him and you just go, holy fuck, that's a professional athlete. And his tape, if you believe in his tape is horrifyingly good. This man, if you look at the yards per attempt, he is not doing he's not doing dink and dunk little fucking bullshit, pure West Coast offense garbage stuff. He's playing big boy quarterback. The argument against him is he hasn't played a lot of games. Is he turnover prone? There's always, you know me, I don't really get into the whole mechanics stuff because like you should be able to fix your quarterback's mechanics. And whenever you're looking for something to ding a quarterback for, you can find something wrong with his fucking mechanics. But that's the thing with Ward. If he was in last year's draft class, and I hate this comp because each draft class exists in a vacuum. It's just that class. If he was in last year's class, he would have probably been viewed. He would have been viewed beneath. Let's see here. The top three guys. Yeah, he would have been beneath Jaden Daniels, Drake May. He would have been beneath the fine, upstanding gentleman in Chicago, Caleb Williams. And then you're looking at him as like, okay, Penix is more proven, but he's got injury issues. Bo Nix, there's the dispute on talent, and you know how I felt about that. Then we're going to talk about talent when we get to Shador in a second. It would have been on that wavelength.
Yeah.
And this is what I will say about Cam Ward. He is solidly a first round quarterback. I think it is probably fair to say in most years he might have been somewhere between the second to third guy, depending on the team's picking, depending on the depth of the class. I say the same thing about Shador Sanders. And the we're doing this really weird thing with Shador Sanders, and I will die on this fucking hill. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm right, I'm right. And so be it. I am not proclaiming Shador Sanders to be the next Joe Montana or John Elway. Okay. But what I am saying is, and you can see my tagline, stop overthinking quarterbacks. Fucking stop doing it. Okay, let's run through how we evaluate quarterbacks just for a second, because this is something that's been irritating the shit out of me. And I want to admit my bias. One of the things I like to do. I am a huge Deion Sanders fan. He's one of my favorite athletes ever. I love the way he played football. I love the persona. Okay, I was rooting for I will always root for Colorado as long as Neon Dion is there, because I like Deion Sanders. That is my bias. And by proxy, I like Shador Sanders. So that is my bias. Okay. So let's run that out there. Let's look at this play. So he's got decent athleticism. He rolls out. He has to hold on the ball because his offensive line, and then he drops a fucking dime. Oh,
It's actually
God.
quite a throw going to his
Oh,
left,
God.
too.
Well, no, he couldn't have made that fucking throw because he's got a weak arm, because he's not a talented guy. Oh, let's see. He drops back. The offensive line holds up for once. That's nice. Okay, that's a little bit of a fucking floater. That's not the greatest throw, but it's an accurate throw. He gave his wide receiver a chance. The placement was good. My God, what a fucking scrub. He drops back. Nice, accurate throw. Gets it to where the
That's
wide
actually
receiver
very good.
is. That wideout had Travis had the corners beat for shit and the safety beat for shit. Okay, but he hit the throw he was supposed to. Look at that. He's chucking it. That looks like an NFL arm. It's not the greatest throw I've ever fucking seen, but it's good enough. And that play right there, pause it right there for a second, if you would be so kind. Okay. That is where he gets into a little bit of trouble. Okay. Sometimes he needs to be able to put more oomph onto the football.
Yeah, well, this one, it almost looks like he was sort of overthrowing him, and the receiver just happened to make a pretty good catch.
Yeah, and his wide receiver was open.
The defender was actually outrunning the receiver.
Yeah, it's funny because the defenders, there's a bit of a triangle there, and then there's that guy. So but he overthrew him because he threw the ball as hard as he possibly could, and that was something that happened to Peyton Manning. That's how Case Keenum threw a lot of his fucking picks. And so he has an arm that is comparable. He has an arm that is strong enough to be a first-round quarterback. Not by a ton, but he has a first-round gradable arm. I'm going to give you a list of quarterbacks who have an arm comparable
He
to
loves that
Shador
triple
Sanders.
coverage. Fuck me.
Yep. Yeah. Well, because they're losing, because their team sucks, and so it's in the game. He holds on to the ball a little too long.
Oof,
He's not as good of he won't be able to get away with that in the pros. You kind of presume he's a super athlete because he's
he's doing a lot of throws that on a college level you can kind of get away with, but once he gets to the pro level, he's not going to have that kind of success.
But that throw with the guy in his face, that's a big boy throw. I want to give you a list of arms that he comps out to. And let's take a look at this one. We'll pause it for a second. That's a good throw because he was dying as he fucking threw it. That's a good throw considering the fact that that man was trying to take his fucking head off and likely almost did. So, by the way, that is North Dakota State beating up his offensive line.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a list of names that his arm comps to.
Okay.
Matt Ryan did not have a great arm. and he got dinged for that coming out of college. All right, that's one.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying he's going to be as good. Matt Ryan made a Super Bowl and won an MVP. He's going to be a borderline Hall of Fame quarterback. I don't think he's going to get in. He has a shot though. Joe Burrow, he's probably the best deep ball thrower in football. He does not have a fucking cannon. As a matter of fact, that was one of the biggest knocks coming out of him on him coming out of college was that arm and lack of playing time. Okay, so that's two right there. Drew Brees, he's only a top 10 quarterback of all time. Phillip Rivers, okay, Pro Bowl level quarterback, made the playoffs, had a couple deep playoff runs, yet borderline Hall of Fame quarterback. That's four guys. Okay, well, you can't just cherry pick four guys that prove your fucking point. Okay, fine. Let's go old school then. Ken Anderson, one of the first true West Coast quarterbacks ever. Boomer Esiason, two Bengals for you. He didn't exactly have a fucking electric arm. Won an MVP though. Let's get funky with it. Peyton Manning coming off of the neck issues in Denver. All he did was throw for 500,000 fucking yards and break his old fucking record, right?
Right.
And so on and so forth. We can find all kinds of scrub quarterbacks out there who had bad arms who didn't do fucking shit. But that's not Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders, what happened to him is this. We thought that he was going to be a better athlete than what he was, and we were holding that against him because we thought he was going to be, not that he was ever going to be Lamar Jackson, but we saw Sanders, we saw electric plays, and then we thought once we really broke down the tape, we were going to see an A++ athlete.
I actually like this play a lot because, and granted, you're right about everything you're saying about Sanders, but this is what I actually kind of really appreciate about Sanders, and this is why I think if he has a good coach like Tomlin being there, I think would be a great thing for him. Watch his eyes. This is what you want your quarterback to do. He doesn't stop looking down the field. He's looking, and that's how you play it.
And that's
the other stuff we see where he's kind of dancing around doing the Elway thing. I mean, obviously that's fun for highlights, but it's not the best and wisest move to make.
A lot of that was because his team was losing. They're down. He's trying to win the game. Sometimes he can get away with it. You have to coach. You don't want to coach that completely out of him. Otherwise, he turns into Justin Herbert.
Nice walk off.
Where he's just 100%. But he understands the game of football. He's a smart quarterback. He understands the playbook. He understands the theory of fucking football. If you want another arm comp for him or athleticism comp to him, watch him move around with the ball. I'm going to say a name to you, and I'll be shocked if I don't see you make a face that says, "Oh yeah, that is kind of what I see." Baker fucking Mayfield.
Yeah.
That's Baker fucking Mayfield. Is anybody arguing that Baker fucking Mayfield is a top 10 quarterback? You could actually argue he's the fifth best quarterback in the NFL right now. With a straight fucking face, I might add. So when my tagline is stop overthinking quarterbacks, let's break this down. The arm is not electric. Understood. You want an electric arm because the bad weather happens, tight coverage happens, all that stuff. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but the arm is a first round grade. The mind is an A++ grade. The kid got hit more than almost anybody else in college last year. The offensive line's been bad for 2 years. He's tough as fucking shit. So he can make every throw on the football field. Doesn't have a lot of margin for error, but he can make every fucking throw. He's probably smarter and more advanced than almost any quarterback taken in last year's draft. Since that's kind of like the hot thing to do. Well, this guy wouldn't have made it in that draft. Well, those guys wouldn't have made it in the 1984 fucking draft because they weren't John Elway, Jim Kelly, or fucking Dan Marino either. You see how fucking dumb that shit is once you say it out loud? It's just like, oh, very good. If I put them in a draft class with guys who, when they retired, were all top 10 quarterbacks, they don't look that fucking good. For my next trick, I'm going to build a team on Madden with all pros, and they'll be more talented than your team because I'm a fucking genius. Hey,
oh god,
nerd. The stuff is just so patently unfair and stupid, man, that it drives me insane. And I come on here for my therapy. So he breaks no mold. I'm not saying that he's Josh Allen. I'm not saying that he's Justin Herbert. I'm not saying that he's Patrick Mahomes. I'm not even saying that as a prospect. He's even Cordell Stewart, who now, if Cordell Stewart came out of college, he'd be a top 10 fucking pick because everyone would be like, holy fucking shit. He's got one of the best arms in the NFL, and he's one of the most athletically gifted guys in the NFL. That's an example of a guy who just existed too soon. But what I am saying is I've seen guys go on deep playoff runs and win Super Bowls playing big boy quarterback with his talent level, but he's not what we want. We want him to be so much greater than what he is that we punish him for what he isn't. And we take that too far. That is how I would answer your question. And I am praying. I know we talked about it. We might put up Shador watch as the first round breaks because I so desperately want him to be my quarterback. I want him to be my quarterback because I legitimately think he will be a good quarterback in the NFL. I want him to be my quarterback because it'd be cool to root for Deion's kid. I'll just admit that it would be cool. I want him to be my quarterback because it means that Aaron Rodgers probably isn't my quarterback. And God damn it, that just means ever so much to me right now in this moment. It also gives me a reason to believe in the front office again because the front office does so many things right. The Steelers front office really does. And it's we haven't had the quarterback situation right since Ben left. And now it's not like Ben's been gone for 20 fucking years, but it ain't yesterday either. And we took a shot with Kenny Pickett. I was happy for it. It didn't work.
No.
Then we kind of like stopped trying to get the quarterback and we're like, "Oh, well maybe Mitchell Trubisky can run it while he develops." No. Well, maybe Mason Rudolph can. Probably not. Oh, what about Russ? Well, we'll put him in there because he's a winner, and he started off hot and shit the bed, and he won fewer games than fucking Justin Fields did for us. And why would we continue to develop Justin Fields? Why would we continue to develop Justin Fields? Why would we do that? No.
Do you think that if they had kept Justin in the entire year, that he might have rethought staying with Pittsburgh?
If we had tagged him, I think he would have been over the moon because he would have made like $40 million or something insane.
I mean, even if you didn't tag him, like if you like, do you think in some ways he kind of thought to himself, well, yeah, they're offering me to stay, but it's almost like an afterthought because like they had me in the game, and I think he went 4-1 in his starts.
4-2. He was 4-2.
And I mean, he wasn't like totally sexy, but he was getting the job done. And I know Russ did some fine things here and there.
At the beginning, and then he was horrible. And then he was just really bad. Here's the thing. If we had offered him the same deal that the Jets had offered him, I think Justin Fields, he gave I'm paraphrasing, but he gave a really grown up quote. It's one of the reasons why it's just easy to root for him, right? You have all the stuff with Chicago. We've been over that a million fucking times. A lot of people feel like he got a raw fucking deal. That he was kind of scapegoated. Even people who didn't believe him as a prospect was like, well, that ain't gonna fucking help. All that ain't gonna fucking help. He was talking about how when he got benched for Russ, and he did get hurt, so Russ was probably going to play, and Russ also got hurt, and that's how Fields got the job, and he understood that. It opened up his eyes and it taught him a lot. So I feel like Justin Fields at this point he's been on his third team. He now definitely knows how the NFL business works and how teams view players and things like that. I'm not saying he was naive. I'm just saying he's been through some shit in a short amount of time he's been in the league. Yeah. I think he would have been cognizant to the fact that if I don't ball out, they're probably going to try to take somebody that they think is more talented and better than me. And I think he would have realized that he would have still been in a journeyman quarterback position, just paid better. And it's probably more fun to be a Steeler than a fucking Jet. So I don't think that he would have been like, oh my God, the Steelers, they hate me, or the Steelers
did the Jets like basically guarantee him a starting position? Is that why he kind of feels better about it?
Yeah, they gave him they said he's a starting quarterback, and they gave him significantly more money.
Okay, so I can understand that because if the guy wants to play, if Pittsburgh is kind of like, yeah, we're going to hold on to you, but we're not sure if you're going to be a starter. I can see why he would jump.
I read that we offered him $7 million, $5 million a year, and the Jets gave him like 20 guarantee. Actually, hold on. Let's see here. I know the Steelers were blasted for lowballing him. And I thought that based off of I read 2-year, $40 million with 15 million signing bonus and apparently 30 million guaranteed. So at the very least, Justin Fields can say, I am financially set up for the rest of my life. I have a lot of money coming to me, even though it's not like, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, 30 million, $40 million. He'll probably see every dollar of it because he's still within expensive backup range and mentor
Yeah.
quarterback range if you draft a quarterback or you get somebody like that the next year. And so this is how it breaks down for Shador. I think I'm going to make a list of teams I think should draft him. Now, this is with the presupposition that Tennessee is taking Cam Ward, and that seems to be a foregone conclusion. I think the Browns should take Shador Sanders. I think they should. I think they admitted that Watson, fuck you, Deshaun Watson, you piece of shit. Deshaun Watson was a mistake and they whiffed. Shador Sanders makes a lot of sense for the Browns. I think the Giants should take Shador Sanders. That's a kid who's lived in the limelight his entire life. He can probably handle the New York media. You have a shitty offensive line, and he's going to be able to navigate that. And honestly, you could use somebody with intangibles. The Patriots don't make any sense. Jacksonville doesn't make any sense. The Raiders, they just got Geno. I understand. I don't think that's going to be a long-term solution. I understand why they did it. The Jets partially got Fields because they probably weren't in love with either of the quarterback prospects or they weren't in love with having to trade up to get them. So I think that's off the board. The Panthers, Bryce was too good at the end of the year. I can't see them taking him. The Saints should take Shador. Derek Carr has a really bad shoulder injury. They're talking about how he might not play next year at all. I know that situation is fluid. I like Derek Carr. He just hasn't been good for a while now. The argument for the Saints is they still seem to think, I'm not saying anything new. It's a meme at this point. They think they're in win now mode. You're not. Their cap is such hell that if they cut some of their most expensive players, they don't even get cap relief. So maybe that means you take the guy who's probably the most pro ready out of any of the guys and try to win with Shador. Maybe that means you stay with the veteran. I don't fucking know. I think I'm right that they should take Shador, and they do weird shit. So I have them taking
Walters has the Saints taking Shamar Stewart, the defensive end out of A&M.
That he's one of the most interesting prospects because I've seen him in the top 10, the middle, the end of the first round, and the early second round. He's going to be an interesting. I just want to know how teams actually evaluate him. The Niners aren't going to take him. Dallas isn't going to take him. The Dolphins actually would be on my sneaky list to take him, but they're not going to. The Colts and the Falcons, no. The Cardinals, there's a tiny part of me that thinks they want to move on from Kyler. The Bengals, no. Seattle, no. Tampa, no. Denver, no. And so you get to Pittsburgh, and when we get that Shador watch going, if we get him, this is what I will tell you. Because he is not a supremely gifted athlete, 21 is about where he should be taken. Because he is a quarterback and they're often overdrafted, that means in a weird twist of logic, he's underdrafted. So I would be happy if, in fact, he falls to the Steelers. I have him. I have him for my listing. He's accurate. He's tough. He's smart. He's poised, and he's a better athlete than what he's given credit for. We didn't see great athleticism on that tape, but there are some people talking about him like he's moving around like Drew Bledsoe, and that shit is wild.
The funny thing is, Shadir apparently said that if any team was interested in him, they would try to have to come up to move up to get in front of Pittsburgh to do it because he's pretty sure Pittsburgh was take him anyway. The only team I can think of that would even think about doing it, at least from the first round, would be the Rams. Do you think that's a possibility?
If he fell to the Rams, I think the Rams would take him.
No, but do you think the Rams might even try to move up to get him?
Trade up? No, so the Rams are Super Bowl contenders. If you look at that defense and you project it to improve, which I think is fair, and you believe in the Devontae Adams signing, then you once again have a ferocious front seven and a dynamic offense in a Sean McVay system, which historically has meant Super Bowl contender. So I don't think that they would do that. I think now there is a world in which I think they take Jackson Dart. Shador's gone and they take Jackson Dart. Matt Stafford would probably be, he's a chill dude. He'd probably be pretty understanding of that. If I'm looking at teams that might, on the back half, that might do it, it's really interesting because let's see, after Pittsburgh, the Chargers ain't doing it. Green Bay ain't doing it. Minnesota, if they want the young quarterback, they have McCarthy. So why would they?
Yep. Yeah, they won't do it.
Houston won't do it. The Rams, that's interesting. The Ravens, no. The Lions, I don't think there are some people that have them on the sneaky list because Goff is getting older and we know he's good, but he's not like the guy. I don't think so. Washington definitely ain't fucking doing it. Buffalo ain't doing it. Kansas City ain't doing it. And Philly ain't doing it. So
Right. Exactly.
so the question might be, theoretically speaking, is there a
Second
better
round.
chance of that or the second round? I think at that point, if he's about to fall into the second round, I think you might see teams like the Dolphins. And I'm the only one saying Miami. I understand that. But the teams like the Dolphins or some of the teams that he's linked to trying to trade back into the first to get him all off.
What about Cleveland? Because Cleveland would have the 33rd pick. Would they try to move up?
That would be interesting because on one hand, are they negotiating against themselves because they have the 33rd pick? On the second hand, do they stand there with an empty bag because somebody traded to get the 32nd pick or the 31st
Because
pick?
the interesting thing is, too, here, Walters, I don't know about your mock, but Walters had Cleveland taking Travis Hunter.
Yeah, there's a lot of, so I have the Browns taking Abdul Carter. But I sat long and hard, and if I redid my mock today, I might swap them. But I have Cam Ward, and then 2-3 is either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. It feels like the first three picks in some combo will be Ward, Carter, Hunter. Hunter and Shador on the same team. At that point, that's like a movie script. Especially if the coach sucks and then Dion coaches them. I thought, yeah. So I don't know. That's just where I have it, and I do want to bring this up too because you know how I talked about how Denver had so many interesting routes they could go. If we had the quarterback, but we have the wide receivers now. Evan Worry, who's I have going to Minnesota, Malachi Starks, Will Johnson, Simmons, Harmon. Josh Connerly Jr., Scourton, and Zabel are all a bunch of really interesting names that you could put at Pittsburgh. And if you have the quarterback, you can truly take best player available. Some of those guys, pound for pound, I think are flat out better prospects than Shador is. It just doesn't matter because in 2025, if you don't have the quarterback, you don't matter. I mean, look at the Super Bowl.
What if the Steelers don't get Sanders? What is their plan at quarterback right now?
Meth. They're playing Mason.
Okay.
They're playing Mason, or there's a world in which they're trading up in the second round to get Jackson Dart, or Jalen Milroe falls to them in the third or the late second.
Where was Dart from again? I can't remember. I did see his name pop
Ole
up.
Miss.
Ole Miss, okay.
Ole Miss. For me, I think, and this is where there's a logical tension for Pittsburgh. We're always win now, which I appreciate. And with the defense, even though we play in year in, year out, the best or second best division in football in the conference with all the fucking quarterbacks. God, somebody fucking trade Mahomes to the fucking NFC. Like, just get one of the elite guys out of there. Pick Lamar or Burrow. Get one of them out of the fucking division. Regardless.
Yeah,
Always good enough. So, like, it's like you never have the losing season. If you have the losing season, you're probably still picking outside of the top 10. So you have to trade up to get the guy. There's a way in which Pittsburgh is kind of blocking itself off from getting the next quarterback, their next franchise quarterback. And it's painful because if you get the guy that you think he's the guy and it doesn't work out for whatever reason, you have to restart the cycle. So there's this fear you finally have the losing season, or you finally swing the big trade to go get the young prospect, and it doesn't work out, but the team is still good, and then you get stubborn and you don't go after the next guy, you just repeat the process, and there is a frustration with that. And I think that's what is holding them back. We don't like to go take the big swing at quarterback. We're usually pretty damn good. Last year, before we fell off a fucking cliff, there was secret, is Pittsburgh a dark horse for the Super Bowl talk. I didn't believe it because I just didn't believe, ironically, in the quarterback. But
Yeah.
at the time, the defense was playing its ass off. The offense was at least getting chunk plays. It was premature, but it wasn't like the dumbest thing you ever heard. That is the frustration that Steelers fans have. Are we just going to perpetually be pretty good and be unwilling to make the big move? Is the big move 3 first-round picks for somebody else's quarterback? Is the big move trading up to get a rookie? That comes with its own risk. I mean, obviously trading for the old stud doesn't always work out either, but what if he's young? Or obviously he'll be young. What if he gets hurt? What if he's not good and you're wrong? What if he becomes good, but it's a win now league and it takes him a while to mature, right? So on and
Yeah.
so forth. The problem is that if you don't do anything, you don't do anything and nothing fucking changes. And the ramifications of that can be felt in the draft, because I really like Derek Harmon. I really like Josh Connerly Jr. I really like Gray Zabel. I like Scourton. If Will Johnson was on the board and we didn't take him, normally I would be sad. If we didn't take him because we took Shador, I would be happy with it. But I'm at the point where I'm defending a prospect who I think is very solidly a first rounder, just not a mind blowing prospect like Daniels was, for instance, right? And I'm doing that while there are some guys, like if my mock is right, and Will Johnson, who's one of the better corner prospects I've seen in a while. He's not quite Surtain, or I was also a really, really big Derek Stingley fan. But he's up there. That's this weird, or Christian Gonzalez either. And that's actually ironically who I kind of comp Johnson to, because when we did that mock draft, we're like, why the fuck is Christian Gonzalez still on the fucking draft board? And if you have that type of corner who's available and you don't take him because you have to take a quarterback, even though I want them to take a quarterback, you get into this weird, like, you can't be truly happy in the draft until you have the guy at quarterback. And it's
Yeah.
just, it kills me. So I know we can move on. At this point, I'm kind of repeating myself and stressed just thinking about it.
That's fine. Let's just kind of go through the first round a little bit. What I'll do is I'll just tell you what Walters is selected for these first round teams, and then you can kind of compare what you have going on.
Gotcha.
And we'll just talk about a little bit. So Tennessee, obviously, they're not sold on their current quarterback situation. So Cam Ward would be the one they would select according to Walters, which I think that's pretty much unanimous at this point.
Yeah. It'd be if they didn't take him or they traded that pick, it would be a shock.
Yeah. Number 2, of course, Browns. We talked a little bit about this. They chose Travis Hunter, but you had a different pick there initially.
Yeah, I had Abdul Carter. I do think as of today, and I reserve the right to change my mind until draft day, but as of today, I do think that they will take Abdul Carter. I think that he is pound for pound the best player in the class. I do think. Well, that's not true. I tell a lie. I believe so much in Travis Hunter, and I also believe in the upside of not just 2 positions, but like taking a guy who maybe he's not a good wide receiver, but he's a great corner, or maybe he's not a great corner, but he's a great wide receiver, or what if he's just good at both, or what if I take this big swing on a prospect and it's unlikely that he's not going to be at least solid at one position, and the floor is that I don't get a disaster no matter what. There's just so much value with Travis Hunter, and I bake that into the 2 positions. But if you pick a position for Hunter and you comp him to Carter, I think Carter's the best player. And the medical was a little scary. Now it seems like it's fine. What I know is that this guy is a monster. His physical measurements are scary. His tape is fucking scary. He's a dominant freak athlete. And if you put him on the other side of Myles Garrett, you have one of the most talented, just talent, not saying, predicting if it works out or whatnot, but you have one of the most talented pass rush duos in NFL history, at least on paper. And I know anything on paper is on paper, but I think
Now,
there's something to be said.
their quarterback situation is a little iffy too. So,
Yeah.
is there a possibility they take Shadir at this point?
There are some people that mock him. I do think it's a possibility. I don't. So here's the funny thing. Gun to my head, I would tell you that they should, because Watson is never going to be good. The owner just came out and basically said, maybe it was the GM, but Cleveland basically came out and said that they got it wrong. Everybody got it wrong. Watson didn't work out. They're no longer
We could have
doing
told you that was going to fail.
Yeah. After that first year, it's like, no, there's no coming back from this. Like, the ceiling after that first year was he could be average, and he's not even average. He's one of the worst players in football with the worst contract in NFL history, arguably sports history. Way to go, you fucking losers. I would tell you, gun to my head, I would say they should take him. But if Carter or Hunter's your consolation prize, and you're probably gonna fucking suck, and you'll get a shot at the quarterback next year, I couldn't fault them for that.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I'd say
number
take the
three,
quarterback when you can.
the number 3, the Giants did take Abdul Carter here.
Carter, so it's a swap. Exactly.
Yeah.
We know, everybody knows about Hunter and Carter. We don't have to, we'll get into the finer points of both of them probably on draft night, but it's pretty well known. We don't,
Yeah.
Number 4 is an
Yeah.
interesting pick.
Yeah, they have Will Campbell, the offensive tackle from LSU.
Yes. So Campbell is viewed as the best offensive line prospect, and the Patriots have arguably the worst line in football. There's a aggregate big board that I go to, and they have Mason Graham at 4 and Campbell at 5. And then there's another mock draft database, and by their tabulation, they have Campbell at 4 and Graham at 5. So there's a lot of swapping around there. When I did mine, Campbell is I wrote he's the obvious pick and commonly mocked and I wrote this 2 weeks ago, by the way. Mocked to New England for a reason. Their line is terrible and it needs to get better and better fast. Some folks are concerned with his arm length, and then I rant about it every year about how it's not an actual fucking thing and all the data, but his arm length isn't the issue. If you look at the scouting reports on him, what really gets him is he's struggling more with the inside and speed moves and has issues with his mechanics. Per Nate Tyson, that's an analyst that I do like quite a bit. He has a funky stance that, and I'm paraphrasing, gives his athleticism a disservice. He's going to be good. If you coach him up, they don't do a lot of good coaching in New England. But with Vrabel, okay. He could be great. He could be one of the best linemen in the NFL. And here's the other thing for Campbell as well. He's been viewed as one of the best prospects at O-line for 2 years now. So is the film lying to you? Is all the measurables that work in his favor lying to you? I don't think so. I think unless he just completely busts, his floor is average left tackle or really good right tackle. And I think he's going to be a good left tackle. Campbell is the pick that they probably should make.
Okay, 5. I actually like this pick. If it wasn't Campbell, I'd like Campbell to go here. Jacksonville takes Armand Membu, offensive tackle from Missouri.
So
because they also have a really bad line.
Yes. Membu, I had him going to the Jets. And oh God, yeah. I wrote for the Jets, when your team is in rebuilding mode and limbo and you don't know who your quarterback of the future is, sometimes, and you're rebuilding your culture, because they have the cat from Detroit, and he's a tough, hard-nosed guy. Rebuilding your offensive line makes sense, and that's a good way to help build your culture.
Yeah.
Mimbu, he's a freak athlete who just happens to play offensive tackle. He gets dinged for being short at 6'4". Guys, height doesn't fucking matter. You can't have it both ways. It can't be arm length and height. Usually, if you're tall, you have long arms, but you can be short and have long arms. It think about go watch a play of football and think about what it actually looks like to block somebody, and watch that over and over and over again, and think and go, if I'm an arm length guy and he has the arm length, then it doesn't really matter if fuck me. He gets they're dinging him for being short because logic is dead. I'm also old enough to remember when they dinged offensive linemen for being too tall. That was a ding on Andrew Whitworth, and all he did was have a Hall of Fame caliber career at left tackle. Fuck me. He's super quick. He's super talented. Even if you think his arm length somehow doesn't make up for his height, the rest of his the fact that he's basically a 6'4" version of a power fucking forward in the NBA in an offensive lineman's body, will be okay. Here's the thing: if you're looking to actually bang on him for something, and I watched a lot of tape on him, I'm just a fan. I don't have a scout's eye. I readily admit that. The knock on him that I thought was fair was that the guys, some of the better pass rushers, can beat him. The problem with that is that the better pass rush prospects usually beat everybody, and they also get beat. Sometimes your offensive lineman gives up a sack to a stud to a stud pass rusher, and then he wins the majority of the time, and it's a bit of a stalemate throughout the game. That's how football works. I don't know what it is, what else to tell you. If the Patriots, if honestly, if anyone in the top 10 takes Mimbu, I get it. If the Jets take him, like I think he's going to be there for him, that's awesome for them. If Jacksonville takes him, I love the pick as well. I have them taking Mason Graham because he's like defensive tackle Jesus. So there's going to be somebody good for Jacksonville.
Yeah. Number 6, the Raiders. You talked about
Genty
maybe going there, which is a possibility, but they have them taking Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan.
I think Will Johnson is a top 10 pick. I think he's an amazing corner. I'm going to rant and rave about him a lot on draft day because I do think he is going to fall. I hope I'm wrong for him because he deserves to be a top pick. This is what I will say. If you are a Will Johnson believer, then you are basically you're taking a guy who when you watch him play football, baseline evidence, when you watch him play football, you go, oh yeah, that's an NFL guy. That's an NFL guy. If the Raiders take him, that's a smart pick. I think they're going to take Genty.
Yeah, I think they would too because they lost what's his face. They went to Green Bay, so obviously they need some running back help.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Jacobs.
Yeah. Thank you. And he's still pretty good, right? Like he was good last year.
Yeah, he did all right. Number 7 is the guy you just discussed, Mason Graham, going to the Jets from Michigan, defensive tackle.
Okay, so Mason Graham, he's highly linked to Jacksonville, and Jacksonville apparently needs a lot of help on both lines.
Yeah,
he's a complete player. He's a 3-down lineman. There's some debate over his physical gifts. I don't see that. Here's what I will say. If I wanted to ding him, and you know me, I tend to be way more positive about prospects because I view coaching as something that really matters. And I think hating on a bunch of 20-year-olds who just had the coolest thing happen to them that they worked their entire life for is lame.
Yeah.
And we don't do that here. We're really mean to, like, once you're like year 4 as a pro or you're a coach, we're really hard on you.
Yeah.
So you get a pretty good runway here at Poetic Carnage.
Yeah.
And regardless, but quick aside. That's why if you boo somebody, if you're at the NFL draft, at the actual draft party at the event, and you boo somebody who got drafted, and you're not booing them because like they got drafted to a rival team. If you're booing the guy that your team just drafted, you suck, and you should fucking feel bad about yourself. Get therapy, regardless. If I wanted to ding Graham, I think he's so immensely gifted. I would like to see that show up, not on tape in terms of getting a pass rush, but completing the play. When I watch him play, he reminds me a little bit of Geno Atkins. Geno Atkins was a guy who was even better than Sue during Ndamukong Suh's reign of terror in the NFL. I'm not just talking about him stomping on people. I want to see Graham I want to see him get more sacks. He's getting the pressure. He's getting that disruption. I think that the way that he levels up his game to be one of the elite players in the league is by finishing the play. Now, obviously, you're not always going to be credited with the sack, and I understand all of that. But the guy is a stud, and if whoever gets him should be very excited about that. Truly,
It's hilarious. I know it's just on a side thing, but I'm running my fan speak mock draft.
yeah.
Guess who I got my second round pick?
Who?
Sanders.
You got Shador in the second round?
Yeah.
If Shador is there,
I was like, I could just pass on him because I don't need him, but like, I'm like, I don't think Denver would even pass on him at that stage.
If he's on the board and we don't take him,
yeah, let me. I don't know.
You're gonna have to go to black and mute me because I'm going to go insane.
I mean, here's the funny thing, dude. This is like a really bad mock because even Cleveland didn't take Cam Ward number one. Cam went in the second round somewhere too. So I don't think that's happening at all.
No, that's a wild.
So this is like one of these weird.
Did you do it on classic setting or difficult?
Classic, yeah.
Do it on.
So does difficult put it more realistic? Is that what it does?
Yes.
Okay, I need to do that then because this is ridiculous.
Yeah, there's no way. If there are, I will tell you this: if Cam Ward is available there at 6 and the Raiders didn't take him and they took Genty, if I'm a Raiders fan, I'm jumping out the window because it's just like, no, what the fuck are we doing? What are we doing here?
Right.
But no, that is
so
that
at number
is
8. Panthers need a lot of work too, but on Walters they have Jalen Walker, the linebacker from Georgia, going there.
I wouldn't hate it. That's the high end of. There's a lot of guys who the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. He's one of them at linebacker. Campbell's one of them. Malachi Stark's one of them. I have them taking McMillan, the wide receiver. He's a very polarizing prospect, and I do really well. He's a little hack. I do really well evaluating wide receivers on here. Mostly because I just don't disagree with Steve Smith Sr., who was like the fucking goat of this shit. Like he was the guy who was like, hey, the best wideout in that draft class is Cooper Kupp. And everyone was like, you're dumb. And then we had to bow.
And then he's right.
And then he's fucking right. Smith doesn't hate McMillan, but he doesn't think that he's great. And I'm not in the business of arguing with Steve Smith Sr., partially because I'm always slightly scared of Steve Smith Sr. He could just be anywhere. He's one of my favorite fucking players. When I watch him play, I see a better version of T. Higgins. So I think if they take McMillan, I would not love the pick because I really like T. Higgins. I don't think he would be taken as a top 10 player, if I'm being honest. Top 10's pretty fucking high. But if they take McMillan, it's a reasonable pick. If they take the linebacker, I also understand it. I think that might be a smidge high as well, but I wouldn't hate it.
All right. At number 9, of course, we talked about this. Saints on here took Shamar Stewart, defensive end, A&M. 10. This is where it gets a little interesting. And actually, this wouldn't be bad, at least in the way I look at it now because of Williams. But Chicago is taking Ashton Genty, the running back.
So that would be reasonable. At 10, I can't quibble. It's also the Bears fans, they just want to run the ball.
Yeah.
They just want to run the fucking ball. They want to beat you up with their defense. They want to run the fucking ball. They want somebody with some power. Ginty has a lot of speed and agility, but he does have some power. They want something electric. They just saw Saquon. I think the Saquon effect, what he did last year, is really resonating with fans. It's not that we hate quarterbacks. We have strayed a little bit from running the ball. It's cool to run the ball again. You know, I once was at a sports bar. God, when I was in law school, I was in shitty law school. It had been 2018. I was watching a game, having a couple drinks, eating wings, clogging my arteries. You know, the Sunday classic. And it was during the heyday of the throw the ball meta of the NFL. And
Yeah.
there was a guy who was like, God damn it, I just want to run the ball. And there was somebody out there who his buddy responded to him saying, man, I want to throw the ball. Right now, running the ball, it's like having sex, but wearing a condom. And throwing the ball is raw dogging it. And then what we've gone, that is a wild comp, by the way, but I understood their 12 beers deep at 2 p.m. on a Sunday logic. I knew what they were getting at. My brother, I just want to let everybody know that running the ball can also feel like having sex without a condom. Dangerous, but liberating. I
Um,
don't want to talk too much about he's one of the most discussed guys. We could get into it a little bit more on draft day when we were doing this for 5 hours.
five
5
hours.
might be 6. 5.
Yeah. 11. San Fran. They
Oh
actually
shit!
had
Real quick, I'm sorry for
Yeah.
Chicago. I had them taking Bear in the corner.
Okay.
Yeah, that just for that. Sorry.
They actually had Denver kind of looking at this guy. I can't remember too much about him, but Michigan's defense is nuts. So San Fran's taking Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan.
Oh, so Grant is really interesting because he's one of those guys who's mocked all over the place. I think so. I had him going somewhere around. Hold on. Oh fuck, wrong screen. So I had Grant going either 16 or 17. Some people have him inside the top 10 or at 10. Some people have him around 20. I've seen one of my buddies who watches the show. Shout out to the homie Hinkle. Was asking me about him because some mocks have Chicago taking him. So he's all over, basically from like the early to mid 20s on down. He's everywhere outside of like the top 5. Grant, I know you can accuse me of being the guy who likes every prospect, but I do like Grant. It would be I think you could probably argue that it's a little early. On the flip side, if you need somebody on the line, you need somebody on the line. I don't hate the pick. I had them taking Kelvin Banks, the offensive tackle, because they desperately need O-line depth. They lost the guy who backs up what is that stud corner? He's only one of the greatest of all time. Or not corner, left tackle. What is that guy's name? He played in Washington and he left because they almost killed him. They lost their amazing backup to
Trent Williams.
Thank you, Trent Williams. They lost their backup to Trent Williams to Kansas City in free agency. Kelvin Banks, he'll probably play right tackle. He feels a need. He's gifted. He's not best player available. It is a bit of a reach, but they're so desperate for line play.
Number 12, Cowboys. This is another player that's been kind of looked at with Denver. I don't know much about this guy at all, so I'll be curious about your analysis on him. Is Tedateria McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona.
That is the guy who I was talking about with Steve Smith and going to the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe in him. He's kind of the T. Higgins thing. In Denver, he doesn't make as much sense because he's Sutton is kind of a athletic, big play jumping guy. He's not a burner, and that's who McMillan is. So there's some redundancy. Now, if Dallas took him, I wouldn't love it either because CD Lamb is also a 4-5. CD Lamb is amazing. I'm not saying, but there's some redundancy there. He's definitely, if you believe in him, it's definitely best pick available. I have them taking, and we talked about earlier, Omarion Hampton for the same reasons. He's a running back. They want to run the fucking ball. I think it fills the Jerry Jones atoning, being a sensitive guy type thing. McMillan, I wouldn't argue with the pick there.
13, the Dolphins. You just brought this guy up, Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle, guards, Texas.
Makes a ton of sense. It's a little bit less of a reach for the Dolphins. I have them taking Colston Loveland. They need a pass catcher. I don't think that they would go. They're in a rough spot, man, because Tyreek Hill is still good. He's clearly not the guy that he was. He's just gotten some more weird legal trouble. He ended the season saying he was out of Miami. He's doing weird wide receiver shit, and Tyreek Hill has a lot going on off the field. We'll say.
And you brought it up earlier, like, is Miami at all concerned about their quarterback because of the concussions and stuff like that? Did they even consider Sanders here?
If Sanders was there, I would take him, and I would just tell Tua it is what it is. You're highly compensated though, so like you don't be too sad. I think they take Loveland because I don't think a wide receiver makes sense. If they're going to take a wide receiver here, he would have to be so gifted that he shouldn't be here. And so
they don't even need one because they got Waddle,
but they have Hill. But I get the feeling this is his last year in Miami. But
he's been mouthing off too. I think he's been kind of disgruntled about.
He wants to win, but then he wants everything. He wants everything. Yeah. Loveland is a guy. I'm not high on him. I have him as a fringe first rounder. I'm not a big first round tight end guy. I don't want to shit on the kid. There's a very real argument for him being a first rounder. The tape says a lot. I think 13 is significantly too high, but I think that that's where they're going. And the reason why they're in such a tough spot is that offense is predicated on speed. The wide receivers are fast. The running backs are fast. If you're losing something from Hill, including him maybe being suspended or taking himself out of the game or whatever it is, or just a decline in production and talent from him, you need somebody to make up that difference. So in fairness to Loveland, because I just took a bunch of shots at him, I need to be fair the other way. In fairness to Loveland can stretch the field. He's very athletic. He's very gifted. And if you put him on that field with all of those weapons, he's going to get looks and he will have to be accounted for. He can mitigate some of the loss or projected loss from Hill. So I don't want to take a shot at Loveland. I'm not trying to shit on him.
Number 14, the Colts, Tyler Booker, guard from Bama.
Huh. Really?
They say the Colts lost Will Fries to Minnesota, giving them a hole at one of their guard spots. I bet they love the idea of having one of the top guard tandems in the NFL. Tiger Booker isn't an elite athlete, but he has incredible length.
Well, it's a gift from God in many ways. It's not what you do with the length; it's how you use it. Okay, all right.
It's not the girth; it's the length.
It's a skill. Some might say an attitude. I had him going at 18 to Seattle. I think I have a little bit more respect for his physical gifts than Walter does. But that's why I'm kind of so shocked, because I remember Walter wasn't very high on him, but they had him going to the Colts. I have the Colts taking James Pierce Jr. And let me tell you, that guy is the most enjoyable prospect in this entire draft for me.
Is that legacy?
I don't know. What I do know for Pierce Jr. is there are a lot of people who they don't have him on their draft card because they think he's crazy. There's a lot of people who think he's physically overrated. There's a lot of people who think that he's physically underrated. There's a lot of people that don't like the levels of production. He's all over the place.
Yeah.
This is what I know. They said a lot of that shit about Micah Parsons, and that was worked pretty well. So I had the Colts taking James Pierce Jr. The Colts, no matter how bad they are, they almost always have a good pass rush. It just seems to be something ordained from on high. I'm kind of I'm shocked that Walter had Booker going there, but I remember that they weren't really high on Booker. Kind of shit on him. That's interesting. Yeah, James. I want to know where they have Pierce Jr. going. Also for the Colts, I almost mocked Shamir Stewart here, and I have him going at 15 to the Falcons. Who do they have Atlanta taking?
Atlanta at 15. Mikael Williams, defensive end, Georgia.
Yeah, that makes sense. I had him falling to the Chargers, but I phrased it that way for a reason. I had him falling for the Chargers. The way my draft board filled out is that teams took Shamar Stewart, Campbell, Grant, Booker, that there were just other positions that were valued higher by those teams. Williams is kind of a guess because I even had to guess that the Chargers were going to take him, and I just couldn't see him falling past 22. When I had him go at 22, he had by far and away the highest grade left on the table, other than the corner from Michigan. I'll just give you the baseline analysis. He's really fucking good at football. He plays football at a high level. He's very talented. He's one of the more intriguing guys. I kind of want to say what I have on him for the actual draft night, because my hot take, or one of my hot takes, is he should be a top 12 pick. But if he goes there, it makes all the fucking sense in the world.
Number 16, Arizona Cardinals. This is a player that obviously Denver's looking at too, as Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon.
I had the Cardinals taking Jahad Campbell. Harmon, I had him falling to the Lions. And if that does happen, they might get the best pound for pound pick. His tape, I don't know Derek Harmon as a person. When I watch him play football, I get the impression that he is a really mean person. He beats people up. He's a physical specimen, and he has, and this is what I will say, this is my knock. He does not have huge technical issues. He has, from report that I read on him, he has a lot of small technical nitty-gritty things that he needs to clean up.
Yeah.
I think if he doesn't clean them up, he's still going to be a really good player. To use a baseball analogy, maybe you could argue he's more of a thrower than a pitcher. But, if he's not a complete technician, he goes on the field and he crushes people. I do think my worry for him is, depending on the team he goes to, they might not be able to coach him up at that level and get the nitty-gritty done. Because while you would like to think the NFL teams would always be able to teach the finer points of football, sadly, as fans, we know that is not the case. If Harmon goes to 28, it's a hell of a pick. If he goes to Denver, that's a hell of a pick for y'all. Even at the Cardinals, that's good value.
17, your favorite team, the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, this was a really hard team to mock, man. Because so much of it kind of falls upon what do they do with Hendrickson? Is he going to play for them? Are they going to trade him? Because if he plays for them, even if it's just for a year, it kind of opens up the board for him. So if they trade him, I think that they would take Mikael Williams or Izaruki, probably Mikael. If not, I had them mocking. I mocked them. Kenneth Grant is where he would fall.
Yeah, it seems like defensively they need a lot of help.
They need a shit ton of help. And one of the problems they have is they scapegoated their defensive coordinator, who I think is good. They asked him to have a good defense with some of the worst players in the entire league at their positions, and that didn't work. I don't know how the fuck that didn't work. Good job, Cincinnati.
But anyway, the Bengals themselves, they took Nick Emanori, the safety out of South Carolina.
Also makes sense because they've been trying to replace Jesse Bates III since they lost him. I I'm not gonna lie to you. When I was doing my mock draft, I saw a lot of people mocking Nick Imanori to the Vikings. That is where I had him. That's just kind of how my board fell. Um, I would say this. If they didn't, if Malachi Starks is still on the board and they don't take Malachi Starks, I think that they got it wrong. With respect to Nick, I think he'll be a very fine pro. I think Malachi Starks has the potential to be the best safety in football. And not immediately, but God damn it, man. I would be pulling out hair if my team took a safety and it wasn't Malachi Starks and he was available. That guy is special.
Yeah. Number 18, I would be a little surprised if this guy fell, but they took Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State.
Yeah, I have them taking Booker, Tyler Booker. Warren, if he falls there, then that's just, you're just taking arguably BPA and you're fine with it. I couldn't be mad at that pick. I don't think they have a great tight end on that actually. So let me pull up their roster because they have Seattle Seahawks depth chart. As much as a depth chart.
Yes, they cut Tyler Lockett.
They still have Noah Font. They have Cooper Kupp and JSN okay, so their offense is interesting. They have Kenneth Walker III at running back. He's good. They have JSN.
Oh, that's right. Sam Darnold, right?
Yeah, they have Sam Darnold. So they're believing in that. They have JSN and they have Cooper Kupp. And then they have Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and that's fine for a number 3 wideout. They'll probably I imagine they're going to take a wide receiver in the top 4 rounds. And then they have Noah Fant at tight end, dating back to that trade. Hold on. Let me look at his stats last year. I'm interested. He's only 27. Okay, so since he's been a Seahawk, 486 yards, 414 yards, 500 yards. He's been fine as a tight end. He's been fine. But they're going. So this mock is saying they're taking best player available and elite talent. Okay, I get it. Probably not what I would do, but I wait. No, actually, no. Tyler Warren, if he falls there, yeah, I absolutely would do that. I was thinking Phil's Loveland. No, 100%. You take Warren there. I'm an idiot.
All right.
Ignore
Quick
it.
Pause because I finished my mock, and although I'm not highly impressed with my picks aside from the first one, I will say I don't know much about the other, so I'd have to be like asking you a little bit for what knowledge you have on it. However, it happened again, even on difficulty. Cam and Shadir both dropped again, but this is the funny thing.
Whose big board is that?
I'm actually using Colorado Girl. I was like, she should know the Denver.
No, that big board. I doubt that she's a viewer. No, that is an unserious big board.
Okay, but here's the funny thing, right? So Pittsburgh, they actually drafted Cam.
Oh, I'd be stoked. That sounds great. That sounds good.
And Shadur, he dropped down to, where did he go? The Jets got him at 42.
No.
Now for my picks, because again, this board's all fucked up. I got Derek Harmon at 20. So obviously we got the Mad Max at our main defensive line there. At 19 on the second round, I took Trayvon Henderson, running back out of Ohio State. Is that good or bad?
That's probably where he's going to be drafted. I'm not projecting him to be Jim Brown, but I think he'll be
adequate.
I think he's I think that he would do what you would want out of a running back. He's definitely not a first rounder, but he's a good player.
Round 3, I took wide receiver Isaiah Bond out of Texas.
I've seen Bond go in the mid to late second round, so
it's value.
I would, yeah. I imagine, sadly for him, there's a chance that he might be a 4th rounder, but I have a 3rd round grade on him.
Yeah, I didn't do any trades in this either, so that's the other thing too. So 4th round, I took safety Dante Trader Jr. out of Maryland.
Nice. I don't know a ton about him. I'm going to be honest. Thus far, I'm doing the last bit of, because business has been crazy and it's good. But I've been doing a lot of my deep dive for the round 2 to 4 guys. This year, I'm not trying to know every player from the first to
Yeah,
7th round.
that's too much to take in.
That's a lot, and we don't cover every day of the draft either.
Yeah, we only do
If we
first
were doing
round.
that, then that's what we would do. But we're not. We're
Right.
not doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to finish it out, we had 3 6-round picks. I took edge player Tyler Barron from Miami, wide receiver Jimmy Horn Jr. from Colorado, and then offensive tackle Holland Pierce from Rutgers. Nothing really fancy, but again, I don't know a whole lot about. I'm just kind of looking at positions that we may think about, but who knows? I'm trying to think if Jimmy Horn's even related.
I just Googled that. His father is Joe Horn, a
there you go.
4-time Pro Bowler. Yeah.
Saints. Yep. Okay. Legacy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how much he did over at Colorado because Travis Hunter really took up a lot of the stardom, but
yeah.
All right. Well, back to our board over here. At 19, Tampa Bay, and you actually brought up this player, which has kind of excited me a little bit, is Jihad Campbell, linebacker at Alabama.
Campbell is, I'm all in on the Jihad Campbell stuff. I think his tape is amazing. I think his physicals are amazing. My fear is that he plummets and he ends up a Raven, because that's just such a fucking Baltimore thing to do.
It would be. It pissed me off too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's still Baltimore.
That's very much a Baltimore is just the king of going. We've read the board. We know somebody who should not be there is going to be
and
there.
They love their linebackers.
They
man.
do love their
Holy
linebackers. And they're good with their linebackers. I had this is for Tampa, correct?
Yeah.
I had them taking Malachi Starks.
Okay. That's somebody that people were thinking Denver was looking at too.
Malachi, he would make a lot. Yeah, no, Starks is I'll be honest. If safety was a more valued position, Starks would be a much higher pick. It is what it is. The NFL is where it's at.
Yeah. 20, we talked a little bit about this. Denver in this one is taking Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas.
That's who I have them taking. That makes he's a first round talent. I think there's maybe some redundancy with Sutton. Golden gives you something that Sutton doesn't. Golden is a yard after catch machine. And that's not really who Sutton has ever kind of been.
It wasn't like possession.
Yeah, especially post injury.
Yeah.
Sutton is still an excellent player. I also, like I said earlier, I had Igbuka going to Denver as well, because I do think you're adding. I think the running backs you want are gone, and I think you want to add to the offense.
21, the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is no shocker. Sajir Sanders, QB out of Colorado.
We agree. I and Walter agree. We've spent enough time on it. I will be a very, very happy poet.
22, the LA Chargers. Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan.
So their offense sucks, and you could credibly argue that Loveland is a better tight end than any of the wide receivers available. That pick would make a ton of sense. That cat that they remember when TCU made the bowl game, and I was just obnoxious to the Horned Frog fans because I was like, y'all are going to get killed and you shouldn't be there. And you got in, and your only chance is for this wonderful wide receiver you have to go off, and he's not going to go off. And I even added then, I think he's a first round talent, and he shouldn't be the first wide receiver taken because he just disappears. Not like he's like not clutch or anything. Actually, he's prone to having clutch plays. He just goes like quarters without ever fucking seeing him, and he has the cases of the dropsies.
Yeah.
That is Quentin Johnson, I believe his name is. And he had a couple big moments last year, but for by and large, he did nothing. If you look at their depth chart, this is why I'm talking about like the issue that they have, and this is something I'm going to ding Hardball with. Okay, the running back is Najee Harris. I do believe Najee will be better because they have a better line and better play calling. Lad McConkey, very good wide receiver. Mike Williams, not a very good wide receiver anymore. Quentin Johnston has been a bust thus far. Tight end, Will Disley. If you look at their offensive line, they have Rashawn Slater. Hey, he's one of the best tackles. You have Joe Alt. Hey, he was a really good right tackle. That type of thing. When you say that in our offense, the offensive linemen are the weapon, and that's what Harbaugh did. You have a quote that old football fans really love. Yeah, we're gonna run the ball. We're gonna play masculine smash mouth football. We're gonna score 18 fucking points. We're never gonna win a playoff game because we're an unserious organization. We're a shitty version of the Steelers. like
Excellent
sorry,
impersonation.
bro. Don't know what to tell you. You are now hoping that you are now hoping that Loveland is going to be Travis Kelce. You have to hope that he is literally Hall of Fame worthy good to be the thing that takes your offense and elevates it past. Horrible job. Like Joe Alt, he was a fine pick then. I'm not saying he could have even been picked higher, arguably. I'm just saying when your mantra is the offensive linemen or the weapons, you are not a good football team. You're an aesthetically pleasing football team to guys who have pensions. That is what the Chargers are. So, Mr. Loveland, enjoy your 4 catches for 60 yards, 5 touchdowns a season, and first round playoff loss for the rest of your career because you are a Charger. I am so sorry.
23, the Packers. Landon Jackson, defensive end out of Arkansas.
I don't think I had him going in the first round. I didn't have Landon Jackson going in the first round at all. So I would have to say, Packers, if you do this, I must give you an F-. I have them taking Emeka Egbuka. They have a ton of wide receivers in Green Bay, and they're all really gifted, and they're all really hurt. And it makes me sad because they have a lot of really awesome guys that play there. And I think that the Packers, I think the last time they took a first round wide receiver, when was like the early 2000s? Let me look that up.
Who?
Javon Walker, 20th overall in 2002. So I have to be frank here. I didn't feel great with this projection because they just don't do this. But if you do BPA and you're an Emeka guy, there's an argument there. They could also take an edge pass rusher. They could also go tackle. When you draft as well as Green Bay does, you almost always get to be in true best player available mode. And I'm just guessing that this is what they do. I did not feel great about my Green Bay pick. They could have taken a lot of fucking guys. I'm guessing I'm higher on Emeka than a lot of people are, and I'm just guessing that the Packers are. I'm almost certainly going to get, no matter who I mocked here, I was like, oh, fuck, I'm going to get this wrong. So I don't like that pick if Green Bay take. Now, granted, if Green Bay does make that pick, they draft so well, he'll probably be really good, and I'll look like an asshole. So fuck me.
Vikings, 24. Malaki Starks, safety out of Georgia.
Yep, I have them taking Nick Amenaori, the safety here. If the Vikings get this motherfucker, oh my god, if they get this motherfucker, their defense is already really good. Their defense is gonna be fucking filthy. With them, my analysis is they already have a really great roster. I don't think that they're gonna see a tackle that they want to take in the first round. That is on the board for them a little bit because Darashaw I think he popped an ACL. He had a knee injury last year, and so they might want some depth. Here's the thing with Nick, though. He is a physical specimen, and he has rare traits. His tape does not always match those traits, though, and the downside for that is you don't know, is he just a workout warrior? Why is he inconsistent? He doesn't have character concerns, though. He's also had monster games. So I like the coaching in Minnesota. I like the talent. I like the value. That would be a hell of a fucking pick for the Vikings if they take Nick Emanora. With Malachi, I already talked about what I think with him. So if they get him, then it's obviously that.
25, Houston Texans, Josh Connerly Jr., offensive tackle out of Oregon.
I have him going a pick later. Connerly Jr., he is a actually, I'm sorry. I have Connerly Jr. going at 30. But he could go anywhere from 25 to 30. Connerly Jr., he's a solid prospect. He's probably not going to be BPA if he's taken by Houston. It makes a lot of sense for them to take him because they just traded their tackle to, I want to say it was Washington. Tunsil. I think they traded Tunsil to Washington. I have them taking Will Johnson. We talked about what I think about Johnson, and if he falls there, then you pair him with Stingley, and that's gross. Just kind of like if you paired him with Denver with Surtain, it's really gross. Conley Jr. is a solid prospect, and it makes sense for Houston. I couldn't hate it.
26, your Los Angeles Rams, Trey Amos, cornerback out of Ole Miss.
I don't have a first-round grade on him.
Says Los Angeles defense showed major signs of improvement over the course of the 2025 season, but there's still an issue at cornerback that must be addressed. Even if that's the case, you don't necessarily force it. I think you and I always agree that sometimes you might just have to take best player available here. Yeah. If you're not told that he's a first-round talent. So they just say Trey Amos is a tall cornerback with plus speed and athleticism.
I will just say I disagree with Walter. Not that those traits aren't there. I don't have a first-round grade on him. I think he's a second-round pick. I could very easily be wrong. I have the Rams taking Josh Simmons because they want to improve their offensive line. And honestly, Josh Simmons might be best player available here based on my board, obviously. I wrote that he seems like a candidate to be in a couple of years. They're going to be saying, how the hell did he fall to 26 type of guy? So the good people at Walter Football are pros. So I'm not going to protest too much.
So Ravens at 27, and like everything you've been telling me about this player, I'm going to say fuck you because I hope it's not true. Their quip is the Ravens couldn't stop the pass at all last year. Part of the reason for that is their subpar pass rush. That needs to be revamped. So the Ravens took James Pierce Jr., defensive end, linebacker out of Tennessee.
Okay. If this happens,
that'd be a nightmare.
If this happens, that means that some of the weird character stuff is not true or it's worth it. And then they just drafted one of the most talented guys in the league to rush the passer, which means he's getting 16 fucking sacks for the next 5 years at least. God damn.
Yeah, I mean, that tells you that the Ravens know what they're doing. If they actually believe in that and take him, that's going to be insane. I'm almost at the point now because with what you described, I'm like, damn, just take him. Fuck it. Just take him.
Look, I'd spin the wheel. I'd spin the wheel on him.
28. Detroit Lions, Neko's favorite team of the year the last couple of years. JT Tuimoloau, defensive end out of Ohio State. And I know I butchered his name, but I don't have a translator, so fuck it.
We'll get that pronunciation guide.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to get people's names wrong. It's just
we don't do it on purpose. It's just
no. I'm not. We're not trying to fucking shit on anyone here.
No.
It's. I don't have a first round grade on him. I'm gonna be honest.
But I think we agree they do need some defensive help because that Washington game really exploited their defense badly. Like they really got worked over,
So for the Lions, I had Harmon dropping to them, and
which would be a good pick.
they would be ecstatic. I just the way that this board is falling, it feels like this draft only has a handful of like. Remember that draft class? I know you do with Von Miller. You had Cam
Mhm.
Newton. All he did was make a Super Bowl, win an MVP. He was a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah, who was the
for quite
big
some
boy that? Because there was a couple of them. One was Sua, I think, right?
So that draft class was infamous for you had him, you had
There was a couple.
AJ
There was
Green,
another Auburn boy, the two big Auburn boys.
the defensive the defensive tackle. You had him.
Yeah.
God, there's so Marcel Darius. He went to
Yes.
Buffalo.
Thank you.
You had
Yep.
Darius, who was he had a slow start, but he made I think 4 or 5 Pro Bowls in a row. He's very good. You had
Yeah.
Darius, I think McCoy for Tampa
Yep.
was there, but you had Von Miller, who's a Hall of Famer, Patrick Peterson, who's a Hall of Famer, Julio Jones, who's a Hall of Famer, AJ Green,
Yep.
on a Hall of Fame trajectory. No, that cough wasn't even a joke. I was just,
Yeah. Right. We're not gonna believe that.
Actually, it wasn't. I love AJ Green. He's one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen from a wide receiver. Period. I was really sad the injuries. There was a time where he was considered better than Julio.
Yeah, I think
That is
injuries probably slowed that down a lot.
It did. I mean, God, AJ Green for the younger fans. Take 15 minutes out of your day, watch AJ Green highlights. That shit is gorgeous. Watch all those guys' highlights. But my point is that was a draft class where if you picked, unless you were wildly incompetent, if you picked in the top 7, you could not have missed from an all-pro type of talent. This is not that draft class. The first, Cam Ward is an elite talent. Hunter is, Abdul Carter is. Outside of that, you have some guys who are on that next tier. You have a lot of guys who are on that next tier, but you don't have like a long list of 10 out of 10. If this guy isn't an all pro, he didn't live up to his potential type of guys. The flip side of that is typically the type of draft class that you want to be if you're picking late, because there's just going to be a lot of really good players. And if there's just a lot of regular, really good players, that is a contradiction. If there's a lot of guys who are really good talents, but they're not supremely gifted, some of them are going to drop to you, and you're not going to have as many like weird picks where like there's not a ton of these guys who are great, so teams are forced to take projects and stuff like that. So this is a draft class where I just feel, and we'll see if I'm right, I feel like once you get to about at least 27, we'll say 25, 26, 27, you're going to be taking a player that is substantially better than what you would typically get there. And the teams who are picking, I don't know, arguably 5, 6, 7, 8, those are going to be the teams that are not getting the typical value that they would otherwise. And if the Lions manage to get Derek Harmon, that means a lot of teams done fucked up, and they are overly rewarded.
29, the Redskins, amazing year.
The Commanders, it's 2025. Boomer.
They got.
I know. I'm just saying.
But you're right. It should be Commanders. I don't know why they have that there, but I guess they're playing hard hit too. But
Or fucking late. I think the guys who run Walter football are really old, so they might they might not be. They might not be
piping.
Yeah.
Donovan Iziraku, offensive outside linebacker, Boston College.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I have him listed. I like a lot of people think he's going to play defensive end in on Sunday.
Yeah.
So here's the thing with him. I have him going to the Ravens, and he's a first round talent, but he's not a supremely gifted talent. If he was as a pass rusher, he would have been gone by now, right?
Yeah.
With that being said, he is an awesome technician. This guy, and I really believe in this player. I believe that he is going to be a guy who he'll have like his best couple years will pop, but I think he's going to bang out a bunch of 11 to 13 sack years like clockwork. He's not going to have a lot of like crazy years where he's getting 15 to 20 sacks. But this guy, it is scary how good he is as a technician. And he reminds me, oh, this is almost unfair. I shouldn't say this, but it's true. He's not as gifted as DeMarcus Ware, who's my favorite pass rusher ever. Because DeMarcus Ware was a freak. He's drafted low because he played at Troy. He was a freak, and he was really, really good as a technician. But in terms of playing football and pass rushing and setting up moves and just playing the game, he is on that level. And that is the type of guy who can, but a lot of people would say, would air quotes overachieve. I expect he is going to be one of those guys who plays well into his 30s and is very productive because of just his skill level at football. And I'm not saying that he's a talentless scrub. He's a first rounder. He should not fall. If he falls into the second round, a lot of teams done fucked up, and we will mock them.
Number 30, Buffalo Bills, Maxwell Hairston, cornerback out of Kentucky. And the Bills do need some defensive help for sure.
So I had them taking Josh Connerly Jr. I'm a Kentucky homer. I think that's a little high for my guy. I do think he should be an early second round pick, so it wouldn't be a huge reach. And Buffalo drafts well. They don't always get their orders of operations right. That's why they took Dalton Kincaid, who is a good player, but then they spent the next 2 years going, damn, we really need more help at wide receiver. With that being said, I want to love that pick because that's a UK guy, but I would think it's a little bit of a reach, and they need to improve that offensive line.
Yeah. 31, Kansas City Chiefs, and I actually can't argue just least with the position because Mahomes has been running for his life the last couple of years. They picked Gray Zabel, offensive tackle out of North Dakota State.
So Zabel is one of the most Zabel to Kansas City is one of the most common links that you're going to see, especially kind of at the end of the draft. Zabel probably, and you know me, I hate this, but he's probably a tackle who gets moved to replace. I think he's going to replace Tooney because they traded him at least for the first year. I think it's possible.
That's what they mentioned in our quip.
I think that I'm not saying anything new. I think he is going to be a guy who eventually gets put out to tackle, probably right tackle. He's a little under-talented for left. He's a first-round pick. I wouldn't be shocked if a team in the 20s takes him because of his versatility. But Zabel to Kansas City is really common.
And then finally, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl champions, Josh Simmons, offensive tackle, Ohio State.
Yeah, I had Simmons going to the Rams. I will be sick if he drops to 32. Because at 26, I have, for a lot of these guys, I have arguably BPA because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So if at 26, you can argue that he's BPA, if you get him at 32, that's pretty gross. I had them taking Scourton because they lost a pass rusher. Philly, typically the way that their team is built, they don't oftentimes have a single dominant pass rusher. They have a lot of good or above average pass rushers. And Nick Scourton is he's a little physically limited. Is what some of the knocks are. I really like him. So he has really interesting pass rush moves. He has the Euro step as a pass rush move, like he plays basketball. So there's a chance you're drafting a fucking football savant who's going to revolutionize the position, and then everyone's going, "Damn it, why is Philly so much smarter than us? We're so fucking dumb."
Right.
He also, and this is something that I believe I got this from the gentleman whose name I cited earlier, per Nate Tice. I almost said Nick Tice. Nate Tice. he got doubled a lot in college. And so maybe that's because there wasn't another pass rusher. I think he got doubled maybe because there wasn't a pass rusher. I think he mostly got doubled a lot because he's just really good at football. And for me, like I said, don't overthink the draft sometimes. If the guy's tape is good and his measurables say he's a first rounder, sometimes that's just enough. And so Scourton's measurables, you're not going to look at him and swear to you that that's the next Lawrence fucking Taylor, right? Or Reggie White. But there are some people who are really down on him physically. He's a lot like the cat that Donovan Ziraki. Donovan, I will get your name down pat by draft night. I promise you, sir. Where I think these pass rushers, because they're not Myles Garrett, because they're not Abdel Carter, we're kind of down on them a little bit. And time will tell. Abdul Carter, not Abdel. My apologies as well. I'm exhausted. Fuck me. With that being said, I think we ran through that a pretty good clip.
Yes, we did. I will say for those that are watching that next Thursday, as we mentioned earlier, you and I will be doing our live draft coverage for the entire draft first round. I think we'll probably start around 7 p.m. Eastern, just because even though it starts at 8, we have to get settled in with the intros and maybe pre-talk a little bit about what's going to be happening.
Yeah.
Maybe some trades will already happen by then. We don't know.
What are the rumors? Yeah. And also just dicking around as we were wont to do.
And we get everybody, all our chatters suited in. We've been doing pretty good. We've had people come by and hang out with us, which is a lot of fun. So definitely be looking for that. And then, of course, probably closer to when the season starts, I know that Poet, myself, and Neko will get together. We're going to do our whole predictions for each conference, and we'll do the mid-season again. And of course, the end, we did all right. We had some things that were a little bit off. One of my divisions was way the fuck off, but that happens because you just don't see things coming.
Yeah, it's also, think of it too, because there's 4 teams in the division. If you get one of them wrong, and it's not like who's third or fourth, and that sometimes actually matters for wild card purposes. But if you get 2 of them wrong, you pretty much shit the bed, right? So it's rough because I did not have. I remember you were much higher on the Steelers coming into the season than I was, because you had them as a third wild card, and I had them, I believe, finishing in 4th, or it was either finishing in 4th or tied with Cleveland for 4th. Although there'd be some tiebreaker, obviously, but yeah. We also reserve the right to do an emergency episode of something really cool. Like if halfway through the season, you all trade for TJ Watt or something, we'll do an episode. Or if it's just sometimes, football is almost always good, but sometimes it's wild. If you have 2 quarterbacks who are going to break the touchdown record, or something like that.
I should let people know this, okay? So someday Poet's going to come visit us and hang with us for a weekend, which would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But he is right. Poet is living on the edge, because if the Lions should win the Super Bowl, he has to run around and mow my lawn.
No, it was first off, that never happened. That never happened. It never happened. And it was for last year anyway.
For you, because Neko is totally waiting for that.
It was last year. Listen, I know I'm sexy. You don't. This. I got an OnlyFans. If this is coming out, if these rolls are coming out the package, we're doing an OnlyFans, baby. For $9.99, you can see naked lawn. Your homeowners association will just.
He was praying so much for Washington to win last year.
Oh my God. Jaden Daniels, deliver me. Deliver me, Jaden. And he did. But that was for last year. This hypothetical, unserious thing was for last year anyway. So I'm not living on the edge.
But see, he doesn't understand. Neko is like this thing it doesn't forget. So she's just continuing.
Listen, let me, here's a warning for Neko. She keeps up like this. You know what's going to happen when I go visit y'all? I'm going to find her best friend, or her best friend, one of her best friends that's single. I'm going to date her best friend. If she keeps carrying on like this, I'm going to date her best friend.
Oh my God.
I'm going to date the shit out of her best friend. Her best friend's going to be like, is Poet coming back to the East Coast anytime soon? Yeah, you tell her. She keeps this up. Her best friend is getting
fair warning.
Fair warning. charm that like
But yes, sir. Do you have anything coming up? I know you got a lot of different things going on. I
I
know you're working on a book. I
yeah,
know.
I'm still the book has stalled out a little bit. It's okay. We're getting there. We're running a lot of games a week. That's good. I'm working on running I'm about to offer up another Call of Cthulhu game. I'm thinking about getting into streaming as well. I'm still
Hey.
debating. Um, and I'm thinking about launching a horror-based YouTube channel. Um,
Oh,
and so that is something that I haven't quite made the decision because my business is doing well and it's stable, and I'm the type of person I'm happiest when I have stuff to keep me busy,
yeah,
and I want to have enough revenue sources where I can justify having a Patreon as well. And it's an interesting time. It's an interesting
yeah,
time. Every year my business does better. Every year it grows. I'm I'm humbled by it. Um, but I'm also I'm proud of the work that I put in and some of the results that I'm getting. So it is it's not tumultuous isn't the right word. It is a chaotic but enjoyable time professionally for
yeah.
me. So
And obviously, I love having you on this show. It's
yeah,
been
it's
a blast since we've been doing it, so it's been a lot of fun.
we might do some more
As for
horror movie
me,
games.
yeah, yeah, definitely, man. I'll definitely talk horror movies with you. You know, that's my game.
Yeah.
Later tonight, I'll be on the Tokusatsu Action Land channel to review Invasion of the Astro Monster with Ulvin. Tomorrow, I go on to Jedi Grand Vales Productions as we review the movie The Hitcher from 1986. And then, of course, later in the evening, I will be teaming up with Ulvin again for vintage cult cinema as we review 1981's Wolfen. And then Saturday, I get together with Neko, Mr. Tony the Dead, and his wife, and we're going to review the movie Long Legs. So that's kind of what we're doing to close out this week. But as I said, next Thursday is all blocked off because the 2025 NFL draft is upon us. And as usual, Mr. Poe and I fucking love that time of the year, and we
It's a
have such a
great
blast.
time. Because
Yes.
so many storylines come together. It's also kind of like the start of like we're about to get football back, you
Yep.
know. And it's also I think one of the most enjoyable, and I say this every year, but it's true. I really just I enjoy for as salty and kind of grumpy of a person as I am. I really love watching people have big moments. And
Mhm.
I get one of the reasons why I get so frustrated with the NFL coverage of the draft or whatnot is we oftentimes lose sight of the fact that these are people. They're not just a random name on a sheet with a 40-yard dash or a bench press attached to it in film. These are 20-year-old kids who have spent, over a decade grinding away to live a dream that almost no one gets and earning it. And these are people who have taken the gifts of God that they have and making something out of it. And just getting to the NFL is a big deal. Just even if you're not any good and all of that, whether, however it goes out, just arriving um there where you have so many players, like you have 56 or some odd players of the practice squad. I know it's in the 60s, maybe even the 70s now on a team. And so it sounds like there's a ton of people playing, but you have to realize that's less that's less than 1% of all the college players, and the average NFL career is like 3 point something. I don't It's basically 3 years because most guys they lined up on special teams and then they're out,
Yeah.
so just getting there. I mean, honestly, people are like, oh, why do you care, like this guy was drafted in the fourth round. Well, I don't know, motherfucker. Being drafted in the fourth round in the NFL is like is the equivalent of name any given profession reaching almost the absolute apex, the pinnacle of it. So I really
Yeah.
fucking dig this shit. um please.
I mean, you can ask Terrell Davis, Tom Brady, Shannon Sharp. They were all late round draft picks, and they all ended up doing great stuff.
And they're all
so.
Hall of fucking famers, and so it's like, you know, I really enjoy it from that aspect, and maybe it's just because I'm getting older and my perspective is changing. I also enjoy being able to yell at Mel Kiper for hours on end. So, you know, it's just there's a lot of good stuff going.
Yep. So if you want an alternative and you want a little more something that we offer here at Poetic Carnage, then please tune in with us. You can chat with us. We love chatting with the chatters about the football, what they think about players, et cetera, et cetera. And please, as always, like and subscribe to this channel. And hopefully when this gentleman here gets his stuff going, we can advertise his stuff as well that he's going to be doing on YouTube. I'm looking forward to a lot of that. So as always, thank you all. We've been having a great time, and we'll see you next time on the Metal Time Radio Podcast.
You see me for you.